Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to Being on Stage, the only podcast that gives you motivation, inspiration, and confidence to be better on stage. No matter how you entertain, sing, dance, band, comedian, public speaking, MC, drag, burlesque, performance art, or street performer, this is the show for you. Hey rock stars, Reggie Dawson, your host of the Being on Stage podcast. Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. Got a few new listeners I noticed over the past couple of days. Thank you as well for tuning in and checking out the show. Listen, if you haven't done so already, can you go into iTunes and leave a 5-star rating? And hey, why not? Leave a comment while you're there. I'd appreciate it. And the lovely people that recently found the show and those that soon will find the show, they also appreciate it as well, because that is what helps people find a show like this. Your ratings and your comments. So thank you very much in advance, and thank you to those of you who have already done so. It's been a while, been a long time. You know, I've been in the Being on Stage Facebook group, and I updated them about what was going on, and I've kind of been updating a little bit here and there on my personal Facebook, but I haven't updated my podcast crew, so my sincere apologies. I kind of talked a little bit about it at the beginning of this year, you know, and I frequently talk about, you know, to avoid getting burnout, you know, you always got to have other interests and other things that also excite you in addition to your performing. Don't get me wrong, this podcast, completely about performing on stage, being the best performer you can possibly be, building that confidence, staying motivated, staying inspired, and really just building your fan army and, you know, getting more gigs. And, I mean, come on, why not? Throw it, get paid to do what you love. But for me, personally, you know, I also have to maintain the same thing. You gotta have other interests. You gotta have, what do they say, more than one, like, stick in the fire or something? I don't know what it's called, but, no, so I've also been exploring other business opportunities, one of which includes beard care. I've recently established a quite nice beard, in my opinion. I've struggled in the past growing a beard, and through proper care and techniques that I've recently learned, I've just experienced amazing beard growth. And so now I'm on a mission to share that with other men as well. And that's kind of where I've been the past week, is getting my products all in line and everything. And so I apologize. You know, it's been a little while since the last episode, but I have to stay true to my podcast. I have to stay true to my roots and continue to do this podcast. I love this podcast. And it's, you know, I got to thinking about why I do this podcast. And, you know, I do this podcast for performers just like you, for performers that maybe you struggle with the thought of getting on stage for the first time. Maybe you're stuck somewhere in your career and you're not really sure how to take the next step. Maybe you're not really sure how to take the step of getting paid to perform. Or, you know, maybe you are successful and you just feel like you don't have it, or like you're losing it. You know, this podcast is for all performers at all different levels, and just kind of passing on things that I've learned when I've performed and everything. And that's why I do what I do. And I got to thinking about a lot of performers sometimes forget why they perform. Now listen, I know you may sing because you love to sing, you may dance because you love to dance, but why do you step on that stage? I mean, the simple answer is, I love to perform. Well, yeah, but it's got to go much, much deeper than you love to perform. You have to have a purpose to be on stage. Listen, I love to sing, but I don't have a purpose to get on stage and sing. You know, I don't feel like I don't have a reason to do that. That's not my calling. That's not my thing, you know? I like to dance. I enjoy dancing. I'm good at dancing. Actually, I might be called to be a dancer. I don't know. But no, I like to dance though, but I'm not performing dance. So why am I not performing those things? It's because I don't feel I have a purpose in that area of performing, or I don't feel like, you know, why am I not? I like to build chairs and tables out of wood, and that's a whole nother story. Like, I like woodworking, but I don't do that consistently because I'm not passionate about it, you know? I don't have a purpose for it. I mean, I'm sure my wife could find a purpose for it, but I don't feel I have a purpose in that area. And so when you step on stage, what's your purpose? I mean, truly, like, ultimately, what do you stand for? Listen, there's no wrong answer here. There's no right or wrong answer, but there has to be an answer. My reason, I'll tell you my reason when I was performing on stage, my reason for performing, it was entirely selfish. It was vain as hell. And I'll tell you, I sincerely enjoyed being on stage, pun intended, as always, but I enjoyed performing on stage for people, being applauded for simply being an extreme version of myself. Like, putting everything that I was told, like, you couldn't do, and you can't act like that, and you can't dress like that, and you can't behave that way. I could do that on stage and get away with it and be applauded for it and be told how amazing I am. Completely selfish, I know. But at the time, I thought my purpose was to do everything I was told not to do and just enjoy myself. And that was my purpose. And hey, if that's your purpose, that's fine. But acknowledge your purpose and, accept that that's your purpose. It took me a long time to accept that. I now realize, like, later in life, we're talking like, oh God, I started performing when I was 12 and 32. So over the past 20 years, I've now realized that my purpose as a performer was to learn, make mistakes, be an a-hole, treat people poorly, and learn from that experience and learn what not to do so that I could turn around and share it with you. And don't get me wrong, I did do a lot of things that I should have done in performing, but I also did a lot of things I shouldn't have done. I made some mistakes. I made some enemies. I made some networking fails. I dissed people. I sparked drama. I stirred the pot. I did all of that, and I can tell you it doesn't get you anywhere. It gets you the opposite. It gets you nowhere. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, I have a purpose. I had a purpose of when I was performing, and I now know that I had a deeper purpose when I was performing, and that is to pass on what I know and what I've learned to everyone else, and hopes that, God, you don't do some of the crazy, idiotic things that I did when I was performing. Listen, your purpose can be something simple. It can be, if you're a singer, it can be to inspire people through music. Now listen, that sounds like a bland blanket statement. That's fine. If that's your purpose and that's what you relate to and that's who you truly are on stage, and that's who you are. That's your purpose. You don't have to make some fancy wording about it. That's it. Listen, your purpose can be a ministry. I know I met a couple of great artists about a year and a half ago that their purpose of performing, and they were hip-hop artists, their purpose of performing was sharing their life and what they went through in hopes of bringing other people into Christianity. That's their purpose, and that's fine. That's great. Listen, your purpose can just be connecting with other people. Your purpose can be motivating other people, inspiring other people. Your purpose can be selfish, like mine was, to be myself, to share what I love to do with people. It can be anything, but you got to have a purpose. If you don't have a purpose, how do you find one? Chances are you already have a purpose. You either need to acknowledge it, accept it, or figure it out. But I guarantee you probably already have a purpose. Even if your purpose is fame and fortune, which if you really feel like your reason for being on stage is to become famous and to make a lot of money, I guess the only encouraging words I could give to you is stop playing this podcast and dig a little bit deeper. Because you're going to need some serious passion later in your career if you're going to find that fame and fortune that you're seeking. But yeah, you're not at this podcast level yet if you're looking to be famous and make a lot of money performing. This ain't for you. I don't know how else to say it. I may sound like an ass, but I mean, I'm being honest. If that's your goal and purpose, this podcast is not for you. But chances are you already have a purpose. You just have to acknowledge it. There's different ways to figure it out. You can try meditation. You can try journaling. You just really have to consider what is the reason that you step on stage. Not the reason that you sing, not the reason that you dance, not the reason that you juggle, but ultimately, what is the reason that you put that art on stage? The reason I'm so passionate about having a purpose, every performer has a purpose. In general, somebody somewhere needs to see what you do. That's just a general... Your purpose is somebody somewhere has to see it. You may not know who it is. You may never meet this person. You may never even understand the impact that you have on them. But somewhere, someone has to see what you do. Period. You were born to make an impact in some way with this art. You have a purpose. Whether you have figured it out yet or not, you have a purpose. Your inspiration comes from your purpose. Your motivation and your drive comes from your purpose. Your creativity and all the ideas that just manifest. Everything is deeply rooted in your purpose. Your creativity will flow so freely once you acknowledge and accept and identify, acknowledge, accept. That's your homework. Identify your purpose, acknowledge your purpose, and accept your purpose for getting on stage. Man, this podcast went somewhere great, didn't it? I'll tell you what. Whew. Sometimes when I start these things, I'll be honest, one thing I can promise you, if this is your first or second or third episode, is I'm going to be honest with you, no matter what, to a fault. I'm going to be that voice that you need to hear sometimes instead of the one that you want to hear. But I'll tell you, sometimes I start this podcast and I'm not really sure where it's going to go, but most of the time we get there. Most of the time we finish strong. So listen, thanks again for tuning in. I'm going to wrap this up and tell you a little bit more about where you can follow me and all that stuff and plug all that stuff out there. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, Reggie Dawson, Daughson. It's a weird spelling, I know. It's pretty cool though. You can find me on Instagram at Being On Stage. You can also join the free Being On Stage Facebook group. It's called the Being On Stage Group. I made it even easier than the name of the group. I've made it even easier than that to find the group. It's beingonstage.com/group. I know, I'm pretty amazing. I'm making it so simple. Listen, I look forward to connecting with you. You can, if you want to connect, you can also send me an email, reggie@beingonstage.com. Yes, it's me. I'll reply directly to you. Whoop, whoop. Listen, thanks again for tuning in. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Looking forward to connecting, all that great stuff. And as always, keep on shining.